Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Vinyl Podcast. I'm your host, Justin, and I'm here once again with my co host, Tyler.
Thank you again for allowing me into your home.
Hey, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Into our basement studio.
Yep, exactly. Because
With
I'm not allowed on the furniture.
exactly with rock and roll, with rock and roll artwork all over the walls. The Doors, the Who, the Beatles.
And Mr. Jim Morrison himself.
There he is. Of course, tonight's episode, or today's, or whenever you may be listening to us. It's a 10-degree night with a blizzard out here in northern Utah right now. But
Lovely.
yeah, it's been great. I think we've got
We're in the middle of something that's going to dump like 5 feet on us.
well, just in the last 2 days, I think we've got like 14 inches
Yeah.
of snow. So it'll be interesting to see. But hopefully you're somewhere warm like I want to be. But tonight we're going to be reviewing Jethro Tull. We're going to be reviewing their album Aqualung or Aqualung, depending on what how you say it.
Yeah, if you're not warm tonight, then, well, you'll be in good company as we review this album.
Exactly. So, the funny thing about Jethro Tull to me, especially Aqualung, the album, is it is the album that introduced me to essentially classic rock as it is.
Okay.
My father had it on vinyl, which it was another album he'd sit down after he'd been drinking and make me listen to. And, at the time, when I'm 8 or 9, I don't think I enjoyed it that much. But as I became older, I don't know what, if I hearkened back to that time or whatnot, but it became one of my favorite albums. And I've always enjoyed it since then. Jethro Tull or Ian Anderson, the leader of the band. A lot of people mistake Jethro Tull as a person, but it's the name of the band.
Oh, okay. I was curious about that.
Yeah, but it's a kind of a, he has a lot of concept albums, and you would consider a lot of it progressive rock, but there's a lot going on in his albums, and specifically Aqualung. But let's get into a little background of Jethro Tull as a band for the people that don't know. They were formed in 1967 in Luton, England, or Luton, England. How would you say that?
Spell it.
Luton.
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 Yeah.
So I was almost right.
Uh-huh.
And, they've been described as like a blues rock, jazz fusion, progressive rock. Like I said, they've got so much different sound, and obviously dominated by the flute, which makes him stand out among other bands. And another thing that stands out is Ian Anderson is singing. He's got a very distinctive voice, and if you've heard a Jethro Tull song and you know Jethro Tull, you can pick Ian Anderson singing out pretty well.
Sure can.
He's not the best singer in the world, but it suits exactly for what they do.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear his voice compared to like the style of music, because it's got their music style is very folksy, especially with that flute, right? And yet Ian's got a very rock and roll voice.
But they have a lot of heavy rock and roll in there too. That's what's interesting about it. Ian Anderson,
they incorporate the electric guitar in ways that will shock you.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And Ian Anderson, he's the founder of the group. He plays the flute. He, is obviously the lead vocals, plays the guitar. There's been so many different iterations of Jethro Tull over the years, other musicians and things. We're not going to name them, but Ian Anderson is the one constant that formed the band and is still with the band now, right? So it's amazing, So they released their first album. It didn't do super well, but their second album, Stand Up, was actually number 1 in the UK, which kind of hit them off. So, they've sold over 60 million worldwide albums. Compare that to Led Zeppelin, that we did an episode on, that has sold 300 million albums worldwide.
Yeah.
So, not that 60 million's nothing to balk about, obviously.
Yeah, I'd be very satisfied with 60 million listens to this episode. How about that?
Yeah, if we can get there, we will definitely send you all a free ice cream.
For sure.
But, Jethro Tull had a number of band names. In fact, they swapped band names on and off different tours and things until finally one of their tour managers, I believe, just named him Jethro Tull, which Jethro Tull was a famous 18th century agriculturalist.
Oh,
Famous, I don't know how much because I've never heard of them. I've heard of the band, but
so it's a farmer from the 1700s.
basically. So, but it's an interesting band name, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of a little background on them. Really what you need to know is they've got a lot of sound going on. And like Tyler said, they're very folky. They're very heavy rock. They're very bluesy. You've got the flute. You got a lot of piano in there. It's just a different sound.
This what band had me wondering, is the lead singer Ian Anderson, is he white or black? And I'm kind of assuming he's white, but
He is.
the style, it makes it so racial fluid. He's not so what Wonder Bread white,
No, I get
Yeah.
what you mean. He's definitely an amazing musician, and he has a
Well, and the perspective that he gives, it comes from somebody that's more aware of the world they live in than most people.
yeah, and so that brings us to Aqualung. This album was released in March of 1971. It was really a concept album, right? It was kind of their first main concept album, and it has the theme of what Ian Anderson has explained of his distinction between religion and God and society and everything in his life. And if you listen to the lyrics, you'll hear that. Yeah. I mean, he has a real, would I say, problem with societal norms and a problem with religious norms, I guess you would say.
Yeah, specifically the role that religion plays in dominating and oppressing society.
Yeah. And, although many experts say this is a concept album, Ian Anderson himself says this is not a concept album. So I don't know what signifies one, but it is what it is.
Is this a rock opera?
In a way, I kind of think it is.
It should be. This is something that really, there's a story to it.
Yeah, it has an overflowing theme from song to song, yeah.
Yeah.
And, so this was their best-selling album of all time. It sold over 7 million copies, which is pretty decent. There were 2 hit singles off this album, Hymn 43, which a lot of people probably know it. It's a pretty popular song.
Yeah.
And Locomotive Breath, which is probably, besides the song Aqualung and Cross-Eyed Mary, those probably get the most radio play you hear today. But
yeah, those are probably the songs that from this album, these are the songs I've heard.
Yeah, but one thing I don't seem to suffer with Jethro Tull is I don't get radio played out by them. Even their most popular songs, I don't hear. They're still constant, but I don't hear them so much that I'm sick of them.
Yeah.
When Aqualung comes on the radio, I'll crank it and listen to it. I love the song.
And Aqualung, it's a song that when I hear it, I know that it's Aqualung, but I don't know the name. I don't associate the name Aqualung with the song, because I associate the song with the very opening line, sitting on a park bench, eyeing little girls with bad intent. It's basically a song about a hobo that's just eyeing creeping on girls, right?
Well, yeah, but we'll get to that in a minute, Tyler. You're jumping the gun here.
I am. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, recorded in April of 1970 in London at a place called Morgan Studios. Not familiar with that, but, originally, obviously as a vinyl, they named the first side of this album Aqualung, and the second side was named My God. Which that song is, on there. So, it kicks off side 2, obviously, so...
But it's interesting to call it that way because, side 2, side 1 is more like an expose of society as is, whereas side 2 is more what his ideals are.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I've always looked at it. Aqualung starts off with the hobo, so to say.
Yeah.
In fact, if you look at the album artwork, it's kind of interesting because it's got a long-haired, bearded, shabby guy on there, right? And he's the Aqualung, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the hobo, essentially.
And I'm curious, is Aqualung supposed to be like a another term for pneumonia or something?
That I don't know. It's kind of interesting because
Yeah.
I always, reference it to the homeless man,
Yeah.
and just I don't know what that's referring to. It could be an English thing of some sort, but
I guess I should have done more preparation for this episode.
well, our only preparation is listening to the album and giving our ideas and thoughts on it.
Yeah, and because I've never heard this whole album before, you're getting my, knee-jerk reaction here.
That's all we're looking for. Funny thing is, Village Voice voted this as the 22nd best album of 1971. If you were to look at other albums from that time, to me, this album kicks a lot of those out of the water. But like I stated before, I kind of have a special interest in this album, and I've always liked it. But it is certainly highly praised as a very classic album now. Very, 5-star album, one you've got to listen to. And if you're going to jump into Jethro Tull, this is where to start, obviously.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. I'm not surprised per se, and the reason I'm not surprised that it did so well is because this is 1971. I think if you jump even a decade earlier, 1961, there's going to be outrage about it. Especially
the
amongst the
meanings
religious.
About God.
Yeah.
When I was saying Stand Up, their second album hit #1 in UK, it really didn't chart very high in the US. This album was their first top 10 album in the US. So, and obviously it has the flute throughout it. It's featured prominently throughout the album, like it is on all Jethro Tull albums, even to this day. And it's very identifying of them.
Oh, yeah. They do the flute very well.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people I've talked to really don't like it, but I think the way it's used is used perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
And would you call this a jazz flute?
I don't really know any other description for it other than Jethro Tull flute.
Yeah, I mean, it's got this. It's very professional flutist, whoever it is.
Well, it's Ian Anderson.
Anderson, okay.
Yeah, he plays the flute.
He's very good at it.
Yeah, he's an amazing musician. You keep in mind, he's the one. He's written every song on this album, right?
Yeah.
He is Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays the guitar, he's the only vocalist, and he plays the flute. So, I mean, there's...
So I'm curious then, is there a band with him?
There is a band, and, I don't have their names written down. We're kind of with him here and there, but, but the lineups have changed so much over the years, and I don't pretend to be an all-knowing Jethro Tull expert. In fact, if anything, I've listened to Stand Up quite a bit, and I've listened to this quite a bit, and get into some of their other greatest hits, but not so deep into their albums.
I guess I'm curious to know whether Ian Anderson is kind of a John Lennon type that used or mastered the art of tracking, I guess, or tracking, using the different tracks. With a 4-track and an 8-track.
Well, I think, we're talking 1971, so I think, and I'm not positive, but I think we're into 16, almost 32 tracks at this time.
Yeah.
So, and you can tell by listening to this album in headphones that the stereo's great. You have a lot of fade in and out of the voices coming louder, and I don't know. This is an amazing album to listen to on headphones.
It was.
It has a good sound.
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of curious. Did he record like his guitar on one track, his flute on a second track, his voice on a third, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I'm sure they're all separate tracks and then mixed and stuff differently. But I honestly don't know all about that.
Well, I mean, the way that this sounds, it really could be one person having a great day at the studio.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful album.
Yeah.
And again, I'm biased towards it because I've listened to it since I was young, and it's kind of my gateway album, right?
Sure.
And a strange gateway album. You would think, most people would come in on the Beatles or the Doors or Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd or something like that. Most people don't get introduced to classic rock by Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
But I couldn't suggest it more. So let's get on with it. The opening track on side 1 is the title track of the album, Aqualung. They never released it as a single.
Really?
Yeah, even though it gets a ton of radio play to this
It
day.
does, yeah.
Probably the most out of any of their songs. But, at the time, this song's a little over 6 minutes long. So without cutting it down, it wouldn't have been released as a single. And I don't think Ian Anderson wanted to cut it down. But, Ian Anderson has said this song he has written about his guilt, his personal guilt about all the homeless in the London area.
Yeah.
He's seen them everywhere, and he feels guilty about it.
It's a big city. There's homeless everywhere.
Yeah, but he can't do anything about it, right? It's kind of interesting. And
Yeah.
this song was written by Ian Anderson, and I'm not going to go through that anymore because every song on this album was written by Ian Anderson.
Yeah, just keep that in mind going forward.
But I love the guitar on this. I love the guitar solo. It's the lyrics are so interesting, eyeing little girls with bad intent.
Yeah.
And of course, he's talking about a homeless man he's watching here,
Yeah, with snot dripping from his nose.
Yeah.
Just, creeping on these little girls walking by.
Yeah, you need to look at the the album artwork, because this is the guy he's singing about. This guy's on a park bench with snot dripping down his nose, eyeing little girls with bad intent.
He's wearing shabby clothes. He's got he says he's got greasy fingers and stuff and all that. Yeah. There's an interesting the artistry of this song, the way that it's made. He's got these verses where he ducks it down into like a radio voice.
Yeah,
And
where
it has an interesting effect.
sun streaking cold. Yeah, where he cuts into those little middle sections, and it does kind of go to almost like a far off sounding voice. Yeah, radio voice, I guess, is a good way to put it. This song, like every song on this album, has got lots of bits and pieces, and it jumps around, but it's beautiful.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And like I said, the way that this is put together, this album should be a rock opera.
I think it is without calling it, but I guess that's kind of the Who's thing, right?
Sure.
They own the rock opera. You can call it whatever it is, but it's an album, right?
Yeah.
So Aqualung, amazing song, probably, at least as far as I know, the most played radio song I end up hearing, but I don't ever skip it. I love the song.
Yeah, and like I say, I don't know how many people are like me out there. I keep forgetting that this song is called Aqualung, because all I know it by is sitting on a park bench.
Well, the thing, what I love about this song, and it's continued through this album, which kind of goes to your point of it being a rock opera, is he paints a picture of everything.
Yeah, he does.
The music's jumping all over the place with heavy guitar, soft acoustic guitar, guitar solos, flute, and going from soft to a little heavier, and but the lyrics paint such a vivid picture, and I kind of see why the first side's called Aqualung and the second side's called My God, because essentially the first side, like you said, is about his idea and his thoughts of society, Ian Anderson's, and the second side is his thoughts and his ideas of God and religion in society and in yourself, right? And
he doesn't really gloss over the fact that society, the way it is, has gotten this way thanks to religion driving it.
Exactly. So Aqualung, excellent song. So we go to song 2, which could be my favorite song on this album.
It's an excellent follow-up to Aqualung.
Yeah, and it's another fairly common radio play song if you listen to any of the classic rock songs, and this is Cross-Eyed Mary. The funny thing in this song is they also mention the character Aqualung in this song.
Yeah, they do.
And which kind of goes along with that theme of it being a concept or a rock opera or whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah. Cross-Eyed Mary being, a schoolgirl who prefers the company of older gentlemen. Well, they're not gentlemen.
No, dirty old man that he refers to as leching greys.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
A schoolgirl prostitute, right?
Exactly. I mean, they've got more money to spend on her than the schoolboys in the yard.
Exactly. This song has an amazing flute intro. And when the fuzz guitar kicks in on the intro, I love it. And it's another song that paints a picture, all the different things he paints in this, the jackknife barber drops her off at school,
Yeah.
It's and it's a perfect song to listen in stereo on your headphones because it's not that horrible panning back and forth. It's just got things put in the right tracks, and it has the right sound to it,
Yeah.
And it's got an amazing flute solo. It's got an amazing guitar solo in it. This song,
Yeah.
it's my favorite on the album. I'm gonna have to say that.
The combination and so the sound of the flute sounds so sweet and pure. And then you have this electric guitar that comes in.
Yeah.
That's so like rough and gritty.
Yeah, it's got the fuzz.
It's
the
almost
fuzz
dirty,
guitar
right?
Yeah, it is. It's dirty. It doesn't belong in the song in
Exactly.
a way, but it fits perfectly.
But that's cross-eyed Mary. I mean,
Yeah.
she's this girl who she's got all the girl to her, the sweet flute parts, but there's also this electric guitar of, hey, she's figured out at her tender age how to make her way in life. And maybe her impaired vision from having crossed eyes helps.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see a picture of this high school girl, or school girl. I guess
Yeah.
it could be a college girl, schoolgirl, prostitute who prefers these dirty old men, but she's also cross-eyed.
Exactly. It makes me wonder, okay, how cross-eyed are we talking? I mean, are we like two eyes pointed directly at the bridge of the nose, or are we just a little cockeyed?
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting, but
because there's something really adorable and cute about a girl who's got one eye just a little bit in.
well, what's funny is we're talking about this. That's how Ian Anderson paints the perfect picture in the lyrics,
Yeah.
because you're thinking, okay, you almost feel sorry for her,
Yeah.
but then again, you don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because, I mean, you feel sorry. Oh, this poor girl that's being taken advantage of. Well, is she being taken? I mean, it's one thing to be taken advantage of, but she's getting paid for it.
Exactly. And the jackknife barber gives her a ride back to school.
He does. So she's benefiting from this as well, which makes it so you can't feel too bad for her.
No, I don't feel too bad for her.
But once again, this is a situation that society has created, being driven by religion.
Yeah, and in my opinion, as a song, from the flute intro to where the fuzz guitar kicks in, up and down, the painting, the pictures, the lyrics, the way the song is mixed in stereo, this is a perfect song. This, to me, is Jethro Tull through and through.
Yeah.
I've loved this song since I was a little kid, and I still do to this day, and I haven't gotten sick of it yet.
It's a fun song. The way that the music plays out, you just know that Mary's having a great time. And you probably aren't supposed to approve of that, but she's still having fun.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear from Ian Anderson. You'd like to know the story behind it, where he was at when he's seen this, because it seems like it could be made up, but from what it seems like on this whole album, everything is based on his experiences.
It seems like it, doesn't it? It seems like he's met a girl that, of loose character, loose morals, and
it just makes you makes you wonder how much he took liberties upon that, or if this is straight out.
And one note I did jot down about this is this song should be a hymn.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. So that brings us to the next song, third song on side one, "Cheap Day Return." This is a beautiful song. It's pretty.
It's very simple.
Yeah, it's a pretty. Got the acoustic guitar to it. It's short. It's apparently "Cheap Day Return" was a type of train ticket.
Yeah, seems like if you're okay, so like there's high fare and low fare times. So you got a cheap ticket that you're buying for low fare times to a destination, but it also has a return ticket with it. So yeah, it is a type of train ticket.
Interesting.
Yeah,
but it's a short little song. It's
real
pretty.
folksy.
It's a folky song. Got the acoustic guitar that Ian Anderson plays, and to me, it's just a pretty song. It's not
short and simple.
It's short and simple. It's not a rocker or anything like that, and it's. I wouldn't say a song you're going to remember for years, but it fits perfect into the album to, transition over to the next song, which is a very interesting song called Mother Goose.
Yeah, and this is a very folksy song.
Yes, and it brings you, he mentions Piccadilly Circus and the
Yeah.
Bearded Lady and Chicken Fancy and all these things he mentions. It's another perfect painting he's laying down of this, and
Yeah.
it almost feels circusy to me.
It does.
you know?
It feels like a Renaissance fair. Is what
Yeah,
it feels like.
it does.
It's
It
more
does.
medieval than circusy, right?
Yeah, that actually does make sense.
Yeah.
But I think that's where Ian Anderson does an excellent job of, with the lyrics and the music, putting them together and making you feel like you're somewhere, right?
And I'm not sure if he's still playing a jazz flute at this point, or if he's switched over to like a pan flute or a fife.
It's not quite as prominent in this.
It feels more pan flute-ish,
Yeah. And the maracas or something are in this at the
Yeah.
end, and I really like that part. Yeah, and it's a really good song. It's not, one that's going to stick out for years, I don't think, but...
No, but it's got excellent guitar in it. It's very symbolically written, very much. I mean, he calls it Mother Goose. There's a lot of symbolism in it.
Yeah,
the way
there
the
is.
nursery rhyme has.
Well, and that's kind of the theme on this album, isn't it? Is the symbolism.
Yeah.
He drags you there to the music has a way of giving you a feeling of where you're at,
Yeah.
and the lyrics, if you really sit down and listen to them, really paint it out.
Exactly. You've got 100 girls in the schoolyard crying into their handkerchiefs, and they don't know that he's Long John Silver. What? Yeah.
You're ahead of yourself
I
here,
am.
but yeah, that's how he's Long John Silver in this song. But it's just, what do you think he means by that?
I am really curious to know, because I mean, I'm looking at this, it's just like, wow, what is he saying here? Because once again, Long John Silver's a mythical character, or it's a fictitious character, not necessarily mythical.
Well, see, that's where he's painting the picture of Piccadilly Circus and the Bearded Lady and Chicken Fancy, whatever that is. So it makes...
And Chicken Fancy sounds to me like a hole-in-the-wall fried chicken joint that you would find at, just a little eatery place. Fast food
and I
place
guess Bearded Lady is what brings out circus to me, because he also says Piccadilly Circus,
Yeah.
so it is kind of an interesting fair feeling and stuff. And I wouldn't say it's my favorite song on the album, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it seems like he's playing with a lot of words here. So I'm sure when he says I don't believe they know that I'm Long John Silver.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that he's got money or something. I don't know, or Long John. I mean, is he saying, well, these girls would be lucky to be with me?
Well, it's funny
Sort of
because
thing.
because a lot of the songs are literal, especially when you get the side 2 about religion and the God within yourself, as Ian Anderson sees it. He is definitely more literal. I think on this first side, he's taking examples like on Aqualung and Cross-Eyed Mary, and then doing a lot of wordplay as well, which is, it's interesting. It's really interesting to hear. But so that kicks us to song 5, Wandering Aloud, or Wandering Aloud.
Yeah.
It's just a simple little love song about a day in the life of a loving couple, whether they be married or girlfriend and boyfriend or whatever it is, but just
they're in a relationship.
And it's a pretty song. It's
very romantic.
Acoustic guitar. It's, I don't know, it's just,
there's a lot of sweetness to it. Just the way that he sings about their interactions, and the way that the instruments flow along with that.
Yeah, and to me, this is Ian Anderson's attempt at a love song, and the best he can do is a Jethro Tull love song.
I believe that's probably right.
He's not Paul McCartney that can sing My Love or something that's just blatant, straight out there. I'm in love with you. Maybe I'm amazed at the way you love me all the time or whatever. It's not that.
It's more of, I wouldn't kick you out of bed for bringing crumbs in there.
And tasting the smell, and he's just basically instead of
He can't help
sit,
himself.
yeah, instead of saying he loves her or they love each other, he's
Yeah.
just saying this is what our day was.
Yeah.
And you know, I shake my head when you bring the crumbs into bed, you know, and those kind of things, because
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, you take out of it what you will, but this is a loving
Yeah.
couple that loves to be together, and it's as simple as that. So it's a really
Yeah.
different take on a love song to me.
Yeah. So Jethro Tull is Cyrano. Yeah.
Close enough, right?
Very poetic guy. Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing how Ian Anderson goes back and forth from the literal to the word painting to here's what we're doing. You take out of it what you will. You know,
Yeah.
Wandering Aloud. Why do you think it was named that? I mean, what do you think?
Wondering aloud. It. I guess it throws kind of that mystery in there. Is he wondering what it would be like to be in a relationship like this, or is he just musing about his situation?
Yeah,
It's a good question.
yeah, it's really interesting name to the song,
Wondering aloud.
in my opinion. You know,
Yeah.
but should have been called Breadcrumbs in Bed or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Exactly. So good song.
Yeah. Well
Not-
done, Ian.
Not the strongest on the album, but a really good song.
Yeah.
So you go to the next song, Up to Me.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like the intro with the flute and the guitar
Yeah.
on this song.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets into that fuzzy guitar.
Yeah.
I really enjoy this song, and it's an acoustic song, but it's kind of a hard rock acoustic song.
There's a lot of sounds going on in this song.
Yeah, and it's got the strangest narrative. It's got like
Yeah.
this real hectic narrative going on throughout the song.
Yeah. But what I take from it is that the narrative is basically saying that he's a working man, and so there's nobody to hand him anything. If he wants something, it's up to him to
Yeah,
get it.
yeah. I think he's more literal in the meaning of that. You know,
Yeah.
is
Sure.
I'm a working man, but I'm going to make my life what I want it to be, and it's up to me to see it through that
Yeah,
way.
for sure.
That's the way I take it. But it's really hard because even, you know, in the interviews with Ian Anderson, a lot of things he said they were about at one point change over the years, or what experts say they're about, he denies, you know. So it's
Did
kind of
Ian Anderson do a lot of drugs?
didn't everybody.
Okay, that explains a lot now.
I actually don't know, to be honest with you. I'd hate to.
I'm assuming he did.
We'll just. I think it's best to assume they did.
Yeah. And let them prove otherwise.
Yeah, that's
You
probably.
prove that you weren't high while you were writing this.
Well, and one thing I could say about him is he, you know, not so much as rocking, and you know, you go to like some of the Doors lyrics, and you're like, what the hell does this mean? You know,
Yeah.
You have your own interpretation. A lot of his are, you know, you get literal meanings in there, but then he's a good wordsmith.
Yeah.
Because he throws things in there, and you're like, okay, is this?
It's poetry. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's singing poetry.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I don't know. We'll just have to.
Yeah, whether it's literal or not. I mean, it's still that's what he does is he sings poetry.
Exactly. So good song. I really like the narrative in it. I like that it's a hard rock acoustic song,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting. You don't hear or see a lot of that, so that part's interesting.
Yeah, I was really surprised that it was acoustic instead of electric. I really expected electric guitar, especially as gritty as like a working man or a blue collar guy is. You would expect more like the gritty electric guitar that we've seen before. But for him to go with just a real hard, heavy acoustic, I guess it makes sense as well because there's no electricity to amplify the sound, right?
Yeah, it's a good song. I really enjoy it. It finishes out side one.
Sure does.
And
Very well.
So we flip over to side two. My God is what they're calling side two, and that's the song that opens the track. And
Yep. With
or, I mean, that's
some
the track that opens the side. Is My God.
yeah, opens with some guitar picking.
It does, and this song has a lot going on in it.
Sure does.
I really like the intro on this song too. I think that's where Jethro Tull really stands out, as the intros to the songs are very catchy. Whether they're heavier like Aqualung, or they're softer like Wandering Aloud or Up to Me or something like that intro. But this has got a lot going on in the intro. It's got a lot of good piano in the intro. And, Ian Anderson has said this song is about looking for God within yourself and not relying on all these religions in the world to set what God means to you, right?
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of what he did was pointing at the hypocrisy in religions, right?
Yeah.
And that, hey, you can still have a God that you believe in. And it can be in yourself. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
You don't have to show up to church on Sunday to prove you believe in a God.
Yeah, he uses the phrase that you bend God to your religion, and so you'll take whatever church you go to, and you'll try and cram God into it to make him fit there, rather than allowing God to be God and then conforming your religion to whatever God is.
So this is the longest song on the album. It's a little over 7 minutes long.
Okay.
And it's got some really good music to it that I really like when the guitar kicks in, because it's a heavy guitar.
Yeah.
Then the flute kicks in. It's got an amazing guitar solo in the middle. It's got a solo that at the end that kind of reminds me of like church with chants and stuff.
Yeah, where you get like this flute playing and some chanting going on.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I really like the guitar at the end too. But the way I look at this is Ian Anderson saying, you know what, you can believe in God, you can not believe in God, you can whatever, but God, you're not going to find him at a church.
Yeah, that's essentially what he's saying. I wrote down those messages to enjoy discovering the holy inside all of us, and stop looking for the holy in cold stone buildings.
That's a good way to put it, because and not only that, your God can be different. Everybody's God can be different, right?
Yeah.
There is no single or just or right
Yeah.
one God, like most religions believe,
No,
right?
there's a piece of God in all of us, and maybe that's what separates us from the animals.
Well, that's why I think this song name, My God, is pretty literal.
Yeah.
Because I think he's saying, I have a God, you can too, and we don't have to, belong to a religion or abide by all their rules just to say we have a God in our lives. God can be in your mind silent and in your life silent,
Yeah, Jethro Tull saying that God's not reaching down to you from the heavens. He's reaching out from your heart.
And see, I think it more along the lines of we all have our own God and you're reaching out to your own God. But I mean, you'd take for it what it is. But one thing can be said is Ian Anderson definitely has a problem with societal norms and religious norms.
I think the conservative religions really didn't appreciate this song.
Yeah, other than a lot of people don't dissect lyrics, right?
Probably not, yeah.
But I could see how a lot of people would think this was a religious song, and I don't consider it a religious song. I consider it a self-spiritual song.
Yeah, religion, the anti-religion is what this is. I mean, it's the antithesis of religion.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of people get confused is there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual.
Yeah.
And to me, spirituality is the only thing that matters, whether you have a number of gods you believe in, a certain God, no God, because your God can be no God too.
Sure.
Your God can be, who knows? I mean, that can actually be your thought. I have no idea, but I'm going to be a good person, and it's all within myself, right?
And it's those things that emanate from us that's God speaking, and that's the message I take from Jethro Tull.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And musically, this song on the whole album has the most going on in it. I mean, Jethro Tull's songs definitely go from slow to fast to flute to acoustic to heavy guitar
Oh
and
yeah.
jump all over. But this song has got a lot going on in it, and probably musically, this is probably my favorite song on the album as far as
I could see
just
that.
listening to the music and how it pans in and out. I don't know if I really like the little church chants at the end. I could probably do without those, but
I was a little bit concerned because I this happened a couple times in this album for me. I wasn't sure where one song ended and the next song started. So I wasn't sure if this was the outro to My God or if this was the intro to the next song, Hymn 43.
I guess I need to start signaling you when I'm changing songs.
It doesn't matter. I'm going to be lost anyway.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe, maybe those chants were sarcasm.
They could have been.
I don't know.
They very well could have been.
Did I say sarcasm? Or
Yeah.
sarcasm?
Sarcasm.
Sometimes words sound strange.
Yeah, the chants, they're not really saying any words. It's more just kind of like this Gregorian sort of
Yeah,
thing.
they're just little short. You can barely hear them too.
Yeah.
So, good song. Good way to kick off the second side. Next song is Hymn 43. Classic rock history voted this Jethro Tull's second best song after "Thick as a Brick," and I don't agree with either of those songs.
Okay.
In their top two, but I'm just telling you the history behind it. It was released as a single, and here in the U.S. it only reached number 91. Funny enough, but so it's kind of funny that this song only reaches 91 yet.
Yeah, it's number 2.
Yeah, but it's number 2. I think Rolling Stone ranked it number 5 of Jethro Tull's best songs, and I don't agree with either of those, but it kind of shows what time does to music, right?
Yeah.
It barely cracks the top 100, but now it's considered by many to be one of Jethro Tull's best songs, which says that the popularity in society and the actual musical ability of a song or whatever are complete different things.
Yeah.
And this is a good song. I really love the guitar break with the flute in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty heavy song in a lot of areas.
It really is. For being something called Hymn 43, it's real heavy.
Yeah, and this kind of follows in the theme of God, right? Ian Anderson wrote this about people who use Jesus as an excuse to do unsavory things.
Yeah, I believe I caught certain things like references to murder or oppression or even genocide.
Yeah, exactly. And when he was interviewed, he said that this song is strictly about the hypocrisy of religion in the United States more than anywhere. Because there's a lot of people doing bad stuff and they blame it on religion or whatever. I don't know if that's a United States thing. To me that seems like
it's world history, man.
Yeah. But I get maybe from the time being, if you look at the time, 1971 Vietnam War and things like that, maybe you see the references
with the civil rights movement as well.
Yeah.
Because you've got the Ku Klux Klan.
Well, you've got
riding against the civil rights movement, and the Ku Klux Klan are basically a religion themselves.
Well,
right?
they call themselves a religious group,
they
but
do.
you've even got things like the women's rights movement and things like that, where you look at society and the way religions looked upon women as lesser and things like that. So there's a lot of things going on. So I guess if you put yourself in the shoes of 1971 Ian Anderson, looking at all the crazy things going on in America and America being, a hub for
a very patriarchal religious country.
Yeah. So maybe from those things maybe you get that from it. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
This song's actually been more than any other Jethro Tull song has been covered by a number of bands. A couple, Morris Portnoy and George, and a very interesting band named Alabama Thunder Pussy.
These are my people, the music of my childhood.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I don't agree that this is in their top 2 or 3 songs, but it is a good song. Yeah, I've always liked the song. I read somewhere that it's one of theirs that gets the most radio play, and I honestly can't remember if I've ever heard this song on the radio.
I don't know. I'm not sure I've heard this on the radio.
I mean, I hear Locomotive Breath. I hear Thick
Yeah.
as a Brick. I hear Cross-Eyed Mary. I hear
Yeah.
Aqualung.
Aqualung, yeah.
Bungle in the Jungle.
Yeah. But this one, I don't know that I've heard this one before.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard the song before, but I can't recall hearing it on the radio.
And I mean, it's written in this like gospel style with using the piano and to make it seem like it's a hymn style song.
But it's heavy.
But it's got very antithesis message, and it's a very heavy song.
Yeah, it's got some heavy sections in it.
Yeah, heavy music, heavy lyrics. This is he said, what is it? The main line of the song: "If Jesus saves, then he'd better save himself. Oh, Jesus, save me." It's kind of this whole thing of.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, yeah, like I get the Jesus is dead on a cross or dying on a cross, and he's saying, well, if Jesus saves, then he needs to be saved too. He's the guy up there on the plastic crucifix, right? And then at the same time, his very next line is, "Oh, Jesus, save me."
Yeah, I mean, I think we can say Ian Anderson definitely had a problem with religion, but it also seems at the same time like he's a very spiritual man.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting. You're right. It's an interesting.
Maybe also acknowledging his own flaws and his own faults, his own need for salvation.
Yeah.
It's a common human thing. Anybody that's aware of their situation knows that they have flaws as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a dang thing written about the next song because
Slipstream.
I missed it.
Well, yeah, because it's barely a minute long.
Exactly. There's no words in it.
No, and it's just got a nice soft acoustic guitar. It's not like a classic song or anything like that, but it's a good little break.
Yeah, and it's a palate cleanser.
It really is.
It's definitely not Hymn 43.
Yeah, and it's just
peaceful,
happy little acoustic guitar song that's good to be there, but you wouldn't miss it if it wasn't either. I don't think. So the next song is definitely one of Jethro Tull's probably most famous.
This is a work of art.
Yeah, and I would say next to Cross-Eyed Mary, it is one of my favorite on the albums, and I normally don't say that about two of the most popular radio play songs. But Locomotive Breath is the song we're talking about, and this song is a great song. I love the slow piano intro, how it starts speeding up, and that was meant to do that, to replicate the chugging of a train,
Certainly does. I mean, anybody that's like ridden a steam locomotive or seen the process of a steam engine ramping up or warming up to the point that it can operate, this song sounds very much like that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting song. We still hear it a lot on the radio, and I'll crank it up because I love this song. It's kind of like all of Tull's songs. They have their soft and they have their heavy, they have their slow, they have their fast. I really like that. Yeah. It's got, in my opinion, the best flute solo work that he's done.
Yeah.
And, that's just very unique to rock and roll, and that's what makes Jethro Tull stand apart from other groups, is the flute. And if you don't like the flute, then you're probably not going to want to listen to Jethro Tull a lot.
No, probably not.
But if you want to hear...
If you want to hear a master flutist, listen to Jethro Tull, right?
I would say. And, Ian Anderson has said this song's about his concern. He wrote this song about his concern with the world's overpopulation as an issue, which is kind of funny because this is 50 plus years ago and we're double the population now.
Yeah, I think we weren't even 5 billion back then.
Yeah, so I wonder what he thinks now.
Yeah.
But they did release this and it didn't even chart.
Really?
Didn't even chart. But
that's surprising.
From what I understand, it's one of the top 3. I think I said that before, but Aqualung, this, Bungle in the Jungle, and Cross-Eyed Mary are getting the most radio play. Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily true. That's what I've read, and that's kind of what I've experienced as well.
This is a good radio song because it's got that good rhythm to it of the locomotive.
Yeah.
It's got an edgy message in the lyrics, but it's also not offensive. This is not an anti-religion song. This is a song that's just like, hey, this locomotive is not, it's not something that's easy to stop, right?
Funny enough, this song doesn't seem to fit the My God side of the album. This almost
Yeah,
fits side one better.
it does. Yeah.
Because I don't see any religious connotation to this song at all. In fact,
Yeah.
even when he's said this is about the world's overpopulation, I don't really read that into the lyrics at all.
I can get a little bit of it, but that seems more implied than it's explicit. What I get from the lyrics is you've got this guy who's taking the train ride home, right? He goes home, finds his best friend's been having an affair with his wife.
Yeah.
And so much of this is out of his control, right? He's not in control of the train that's running down the track, how fast it's going, when it stops, when it slows down. That's out of his control. His wife and his best friend, their actions are out of his control, and he's not gonna commit suicide. But the world's not gonna stop. The
Yeah,
sun's gonna
it keeps speeding up
exactly
and speeding up.
yeah, and he keeps getting older. He keeps breathing in and out. These are involuntary reflexes. The beating of his heart keeps on beating. His life doesn't stop just because everything's out of his control. He can't even control that much.
Yeah, it's an amazing song musically, lyrically. In my opinion, has the best flute solo work that Ian Anderson has done. And if you haven't heard it, you need to go listen to this song. It's a great song. This album wouldn't be without it, but in my opinion, and sound like Tyler's too, this belonged on side one.
Yeah, for sure. This is more This is more in line with what was the other train song? The cheap return fare.
Cheap Day Return.
Cheap Day Return. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more societal than
Yeah.
religious or spiritual.
They probably should have switched this one with that wondering.
Aloud.
Yeah, wondering aloud.
Well, that's a love song, so I don't know if that fits on here at all. But
I guess they had to put it somewhere, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. So that brings us to the last song, Wind Up.
Yeah.
It's an interesting song. It's got a good start to it, opening with the acoustic, and it has that kind of far away or radio lyrics, as you would say.
Exactly.
That kind of sounds like they're in the background with a radio playing in the other room or something. That's kind of how, and that comes to the foreground going in it. But Ian Anderson basically said this song's about pushing back against society's expectations of life and everything they're wanting you to do. Go to school, go to church, do the things that you just have to do.
Yeah,
don't ask
exactly.
why, you just do them, right?
Yeah.
And he has a problem with God and societal traditions as they are set.
Yeah.
And I get it because I'm that way too. I always, how I am, I think, why is this tradition this way? And, a lot of times the answer you get is because it is.
Yeah, exactly. He references, over and over again in this song, the fact that God seems to be like a pocket watch that you wind up on Sunday. So, you have to go to church to get your God watch rewound again. And he's like, that's not how it works. Yeah.
Well, and it's the same. We have that big time around here with the predominant religion, is it's like, okay, you're religious and spiritual on Sundays, and, it winds down over the week until, Saturday comes, and then your tank's pretty much empty, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you got to go back to get your dose of God or religion or whatever it may be.
He makes another really good point here. He says, licking the boots of death, born out of fear. So this, religion has a tendency to instill in you this fear of death. After you die, you're going to be held accountable for all your sins. And you're going to have to, account for all that. And so religion often points us to live our lives for the next life, right? And to kind of ignore what's here in front of us. And Jethro's, Ian saying, no, we have what we have right here and right now. Why are you wasting this life in the name of the next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And musically, I love this song. You know, when the heavy guitars kick in, I love that. I
Yeah.
love the sound of the heavy fuzz guitars. I love the instrumental in the middle of the section of the song. Then it slows back down. It's just a pretty song arrangement all the way around. It's a good way to end the album.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, it's a good song. It fits perfectly onto this side. You know, it kind of, I mean, like you said,
It wraps it up nicely.
it does. And this should be a concept slash rock opera slash whatever you want to call it. But everything on here pretty much is going by the same theory of his perceptions of God, religion, life, you know, society, things like that. But I can say, you know, if you don't want to look into the lyrics and you want to listen to the music, to me, that's where it really shines.
I think if you can find an instrumental version of these, that's going to be a fun ride too.
Yeah.
You don't need the lyrics. You don't need the words.
Well, and like I said, this was the album that was my gateway and it got me into it. And obviously, when I'm 12 years old and really getting into it and listening to it, I'm not dissecting the lyrics, you know, thinking these are love songs or about prostitutes or about religion. I'm just listening to the music and how I'm a very...
And how it's like resonating with you.
Yeah, and I definitely look into the lyrics, maybe not as deep as you do. And I guess that's good why we're doing this.
I don't know. It kills music for me, I'll tell you that.
I can see how it does sometimes. And, you know, especially when they're more literal, you know, when they're they're painting them out there and saying, okay, these are the figures we're putting in this. You figure out what it means to you, you know, and that's how a lot of it is, right?
Yeah.
But the way this album to me is an amazing album. It's in my top 10 of all time.
I can see why.
And it's pretty throughout. And we obviously haven't rated an album yet that we think is complete garbage, and we probably won't for a while because
we'll come across one sooner or later.
Well, other than we've got a lot of albums on the list to do that I already know I love, but we'll be honest about them when they're good, and we'll be honest about the parts of them that we don't like.
Yeah, I doubt we're going to be reviewing a Miley Cyrus albums anytime soon.
Most likely not going to happen for a while.
Yeah.
But this album for me is good throughout. There's bits and pieces I don't like as much as others, but it's an album that I don't skip any songs on. I listen to it throughout, and the song arrangements are amazing in it, from slow to heavy to acoustic to fuzz guitar to the flute to piano. It's Ian Anderson has done an amazing job on this.
And I have to feel like that's intentional. That I don't think that he just threw any of this on there just to see if it would stick, right? It seems like side one exposes the problems. Side two is a way of him offering his solution.
Yeah, well, that's what's kind of funny about it is there doesn't seem to be any songs that were created on here just as a hook for a single or a hit song. It's definitely, whether Ian Anderson wants to admit it or not, it's a concept album, and the album is hooked together, unlike a lot of albums.
Yeah, and for it to not be a concept album, it would have to be by accident. And I just don't see it being accidental at all.
I guess it depends on what you consider a concept album, but an album, without a doubt, this is an album that has an ongoing theme throughout.
Exactly.
You know, so that's one thing. But excellent album by Jethro Tull. I suggest you go give it a listen because it's an amazing album. I love the way the music sounds.
Yep.
I love the meanings behind it. So
I'm going to give this one 9 out of 10.
I give this one 10 out of 10.
Sure.
So, and a lot of that's because of my history with it, but it's an album that's with me and always will be with me. And
there was a couple of songs that, I enjoyed all of it, but there was a couple of songs that just weren't my cup of tea.
No, I get it.
Yeah. So
I get it.
Therefore I give it 9.
And there are a couple weaker songs on it, but mine, my rating is based out of probably a little bit of my history with it as well. So take a listen. And we appreciate you guys giving us a listen. If you have any suggestions for album reviews you'd like us to do or topics you'd like us to cover, send us an email at classicvinylpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast, Twitter, Classic Vinyl Pod. So we really appreciate
We're here every week.
We try to be anyways.
Yeah.
And so until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.